It's prom and wedding season in full swing. But I'm going to step away from that schedule for just a minute because look, see this? And this. I've got some other projects that I'm working on. And honestly, I just love it when I can just see what I have, fabric or decor, like shop my own house, or look in my pantry and see what do I have that I can just make something, a new recipe or a new arrangement on my desk, or even something with fabric. Now, right now, I have these little wood cutouts, and they're obviously in the shape of carrots, in this burlap twine, and I haven't decided exactly if I want to paint these or cover them with a napkin, but what I do know is that I want to use this twine and I want to make a garland. And I don't want just carrots on there, wood cutouts. I believe that I'm going to go ahead and add little fabric tassels, fabric. I'm going to add fabric between the carrots. This is a little trick that you might not know. So when you have fabric, now this square I bought at Walmart. So when you go in Walmart to the craft department, you might not realize that they have gobs. Hobby Lobby does too. Michael's probably does. But anyway, they have these pieces, and these are called fat quarters. They're about 18 by 18 or maybe 24 by 18. Typically, they're cotton polyester. Now, what that means is that this is fabric that has been woven. See when I pull on this fabric, how it kind of stretches? But when I pull on it like this, it doesn't stretch. So this is the cross grain of the fabric, and see how it stretches? The cross grain stretches. The length of the fabric does not stretch. Now, watch this. If you have cotton fabric or cotton polyester fabric, you can easily make ribbons with one simple technique. Here's another little tip. See this right here where this is written? This is called the selvage, and it tells the designer and the copyright number of this print. So the selvage right here is where this fabric has been attached into the machine when they were doing the weaving or the printing of the design or whatever. But that's also the indication of the lengthwise of the grain of the fabric, not the crosswise. The crosswise stretches. Now here's why this matters in this specific situation. If I want to take this fabric and make a whole bunch of little tassels, I don't know if you remember the video that I did a while back where it's all the rage to tie those floppy bows and to have a raggedy edge. I'm going to show you how to have a raggedy edge. A frazzled egg. A frazzled egg. A frazzled edge. A rippled edge. Unraveled edge. Whatever you want to call it. It's not going to be a finished edge. It's going to be unfinished. So in this situation, you need to know which is the length of your fabric, and it's this right here. It's not stretching. This stretches. So then, if you make a snip with your scissors And what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a snip right here because I'm going to get rid of this selvaged edge. Now watch. See that? The selvage perfectly tore off of this fabric, and it tore off in a straight line because it's woven in a straight line. Now, can you see the frazzled edge, the rippled edge, the unfinished edge? That is where the lengthwise threads have pulled away. So if you want it more unfinished, more frazzly, just pull away more of these lengthwise threads. Now, if you want a whole bunch of ribbons, like I want to tie between my carrots on my banner, then all I need to do is just make another snip in the fabric, and I'm just going to go over about 1/2 inch. When my mother taught me this, I was probably about 7 years old, and I could not believe it. Snipped the thread, and she pulled on it like this. I was in awe. Once you have your ribbon strips of fabric cut, see this frayed edge? If you want it to be more frayed, you can just pull more of the thread off from the edge of it like this. And obviously, I have not ironed this with the iron to make it nice and smooth. You can do that if you want to. I'm not doing that for this banner. I kind of like the ragged homegrown look it has. But what I am going to do is fold it in half like this and then cut it. Then I'm going to tie both of these around the twine so that I have fabric between each carrot. Just going to tie it around like that, and then it'll just have a little scruffy look to it. On this one, I want to try attaching it a different way. See how this one is just kind of standing upright? And I'm sure when I hang it, it'll flop some direction there. But I want to see what it looks like if I tie it through a loop. So I have both of these, just loop it over my finger, then I'm going to lay it right there on the twine and stick these for the ends right through here, right through this loop I made. Yeah, just pull it like that. Then when it hangs, these will hang down like the carrots hang, and I think I like that better. So let's see, I have one carrot here, and I have one carrot here. So I need to put another carrot right there, tie that on. But I believe that I like them hanging down more than this one that's standing up. I used to think that if I did things for myself that I enjoyed, I was being selfish. Like just taking time to make this garland because I want this garland. I felt like that was being selfish, or sitting down and doing hand lettering and coloring it, or finding fabric and making a tote bag. Just things that I enjoy. Making a batch of cookies, or a big salad. I love salad. I used to think that doing things just for myself because I wanted it was selfish. And then I realized that it's not selfish to do things that nourish your inner being, that nourishes your well-being. In a journey toward health and wholeness, spiritual, emotional, physical, social wellness, there are so many aspects of what creates holistic wellness, but things that allow you to create emotional well-being within yourself is not selfish. It's healthy, because when you become spiritually and emotionally and physically and socially healthy, then you in turn can help those that you love and those that you have influence over. Sometimes it's just a matter of realizing that and then taking little baby steps toward achieving that. It's easy to think that you have to do things in a big and grand way. Sign up for the gym and work out an hour 5 days a week, or cake decorating class and decorate cakes six times a month for 3 months, or go on vacations every other weekend to the cabin on the lake. No, there's nothing at all wrong with doing any of that. But there are times that you can get it set in your thoughts that if you can't do it a certain way, that there's no way out. But I want to encourage you to realize that just taking baby steps, just adding 100 repetitions of one exercise right before you step in the shower is a baby step. That's enough to get you started, to create a habit, to create a rhythm. And then you'll realize, oh, climb my stairs 10 times, up and down, up and back down, up and back down. Just baby steps toward wholeness and wellness. Writing one verse of scripture, taking one day and not eating any sugar. Just little baby steps toward wellness, toward wholeness. And pretty soon you'll see that your whole mindset, your whole outlook will begin to change. And I want to encourage you to seek peace, to seek hope, to seek joy. When you seek those things and you look for them, miracles are everywhere. The answers are everywhere, but we do have to look for them. But so many times it's in the quiet, still, small places. And we see that little nugget, when we see that little treasure and latch onto it and hold onto it and take the baby step that it offers us, in a few days or a few weeks and certainly a few months, you can look back and see all the progress you've made. So what is something that you can do to take a baby step toward wellness, toward hope, toward peace and joy? I want to encourage you to be on the lookout for those. You know, you can create your story and change your life.